Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you're tuning in from. We do so appreciate you. As we can see, tonight's format has been altered slightly. It is your boy, Bentley Danger, riding solo dolo. The wonderful Gary and the fearless Ryan are not here at the moment. I do believe Gary will be joining us at some point on the pod. Ryan is away for the evening, as far as I know. Regardless, I'm here to shepherd you through yet another edition of Backyard Buckets, brought to you by Backyard Sports. I would love to talk about the games that are currently going on right now, but for those that are live with us this evening, I will not be spoiling those. And for those that will be watching this later on or listening to it on whatever chosen device you do prefer, you have to tune in next week to get my opinions on the games that are currently happening. Those, of course, would be the in-season tournament games that are occurring in Las Vegas right now. It is Milwaukee and Indiana and New Orleans and the Lakers going at it. It is the semifinals for the in-season tournament, the first inaugural, as we talked previously on this program. The three of us, myself, Gary, and Ryan, all seem to be big fans of this, right? And the NBA has kind of come out and proven to the average viewer that there can be meaningful basketball played in the league in the months of November and December leading up into Christmas Day, which for a lot of fans and viewers has kind of felt like the unofficial start of the NBA season, right? College football is winding down. NFL is ramping up for the playoffs. So you're losing one sport in college football. You're gaining another sport really in NBA basketball, right? For the true blue basketball fans, we know that the season starts much sooner. We get college basketball, we get NBA regular season, and we love all of it, right? So we should probably get into the games that occurred. Oh, ladies and gentlemen,
bud.
we have him.
What's going on, man?
Not much, man. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm doing well. I was just telling everyone how we're not going to talk about the games that are occurring at the exact moment. I kind of talked about how for most people the NBA season starts on Christmas Day, right? But for true fans of basketball, we've known that these games were occurring in November and December, but the NBA has proven to all of us that meaningful basketball games can be played in the initial months, right? And the viewership numbers have been up. The games have been intense. We've seen the high level of play brought out, specifically, in my opinion, by Indiana. They've looked like the best team on the floor throughout most of this in-season tournament. But of course, Giannis is still there, and LeBron is still there, the true blue all-stars in this league. That being said, would you like to talk about the games that occurred on Tuesday evening?
Yeah,
the Knicks and the Bucks.
I think you kind of hit, a point that I wanted to get your thoughts on, but you've hit on it a little bit. I think the NBA is winning with this in-season tournament, man. Even pool play. Viewership, you mentioned it was up, and in the end, like, that's the whole reason the NBA did this, right? Mm-hmm. Like, they're throwing some extra money at the teams that win and players and yada yada, but this is all about viewership and the next TV deal. Mm-hmm. Being able to manage some of the load management stuff as well, right? Putting some of the onus on the coaches and the teams to be more honest about injuries, but also make sure that star players are playing so that they can keep fans happy and keep fans in the stands, but also to sell more TV dollars. So I think it's been a win to this point. And, we've seen some intense play from the players as well. So it seems that it matters, mm-hmm. right? They're competitors. I wasn't fully convinced before the season that we were going to see this level of competitiveness in some of these in-season tournament games, but you look at what, like, Phoenix and LA, right? Milwaukee kind of ran away from the Knicks on Monday, but Phoenix and LA, that was a tight nip-tuck game down the stretch. So that we've seen it. We saw it with the Kings and the Warriors as well in their elimination game at the end. The Warriors were talking about how much they had to win by. I love it. I love it. I knew it was gonna be quirky, but I think the NBA has done a good job, and they're winning right now.
Yeah, absolutely. That the Lakers and Suns game came down to literally the final possession of the game, and
Yeah.
it was slightly controversial.
Very much so, yeah.
Slightly controversial. For those who don't exactly know what we're talking about, there was a rebound that came down to Austin Reeves, and in the final seconds of a game, everybody kind of scrums for the ball. It was on the I believe it was on the Suns' ends of the court. So if they get this rebound, they can put a shot back up. Yada yada. Well, from my purview, what I saw happen was Austin Reeves lost possession of the ball and is recovered, to use a football term, recovered, or an NBA term, eminent possession was gained by the Phoenix Suns. They were looking to put up a shot. They were down 3. They get a 3. Maybe it goes in. We get an overtime, yada, yada. Well, the referees blew their whistle and declared that there was a timeout called before a jump ball, which was ultimately the call that they made on the court, was that Austin Reeves had been tied up with possession of the ball. But it was so instantaneous and so split second that, Gary, I'm not sure how you saw it, but in my opinion, it looked like he lost possession of the ball.
Yeah, and I don't do this often, all right? So I'm going to do something that is a little out of character for me, and I'm going to give the Zebras a pass on this one. I'm not going to let them off the hook, but what I am going to say is I think they made a mistake, right? I think they got it wrong. I agree with you. I thought Phoenix wholeheartedly had possession before the whistle even blew, but in the heat of the moment, I think I have to lean toward like the refs saw what they saw and they tried to make the call, and one person saw a timeout, but you can't really call timeout if you don't have possession. Even in a jump ball scenario, you can't call a timeout. So if one was going to call a jump ball, how did the other one see it as a timeout? I think there was just a lot going on. They made a mistake, but I also think, like you mentioned, right, there's a lot of scrum. When games matter is when you see a lot of this at the end of games. Playoffs, we see this all the time where they're fighting for possession at the end of these tight games. They blew it. They blew the call. I agree with you that they blew the call, but it's a fast game with fast athletes, and that's a scrum. I just wish they hadn't granted the timeout. Mm-hmm. If it was a difference between jump ball and possession, I think we can all kind of agree that it was close enough to a certain extent that they could have been tossed up between those two. But I don't know how you can have two refs see it so differently, because you cannot call a timeout in a tied up situation, right? Because there's no clear possession. You call it was imminent possession, I believe, is the name call.
Yeah.
Right? Man, I feel for Phoenix in that scenario, because there still is enough time to kind of consider, hey, they're going to get a shot up, but man, I don't know how you go from tied ball to timeout. That's the part that bugs me the most. There should have been a meeting, and they should have gotten together and said, hey man, we can't grant a timeout if another guy was calling a jump ball, right? You're not gonna tell me that the angle that they were standing at, they saw it so differently that both of them could have felt like they were right. So yeah. I'm with you. I think that Phoenix did have possession. I think they blew it. I feel for them to a certain extent. I don't always let the Zebras off the hooks. I'm usually pretty hard on them, but it's a lot going on there. I just wish they hadn't been so far apart on how they saw it. Jump ball versus possession, fine. Jump ball versus timeout, I don't know. I don't know.
That one is tough, and what makes it even more, I guess, favorable for your position, right, is that because I thought he lost the ball and the Suns gained imminent possession. The NBA does the final 2-minute report, right? Where teams can send in clips to the NBA offices, at one NBA Park Lane or whatever in New York City.
I love that the NBA does it too.
Yeah, it's great. However, in this scenario, they reviewed the tape and they deemed that a timeout was called before a jump ball was declared on the court, which was crazy.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. I mean, I guess I have to be wrong here because the 2-minute
the NBA reviewed it, and yeah, I agree. I feel very differently about it.
Yeah, I 100% agree. In that elimination game, right? Because it's a one game eliminator here in the quarter, and then semis, right, going into the finals. Kevin Durant finished with 31 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. He got some help from Devin Booker, who poured in 21, and Grayson Allen also poured in 21. But I think what the most impressive stat line of the night for me coming out of that game was Anthony Davis with 27 and 15 in like 39 minutes, right? We talk all the time, on the show and off the show, honestly. I believe that Anthony Davis is like a 1-in-3 guy, right? You get one great game out of him for every 3 games. He famously has been called Street Clothes Davis by, I believe, Stephen A. Smith
and Charles Barkley loves to bring that up as well.
Yeah. So, biggest stat of the night right there for me was Anthony Davis having pretty much the game of his life.
Yep.
And that was something that we had talked about specifically on this program when we had our trepidations about the Phoenix Suns, was that they don't have that 7-footer that they can lean on defensive possessions in the playoffs. Guard guys like Anthony Davis and Jokic and the Twin Towers in Minnesota. Even Chet Holmgren really, I reckon, would give them issues in a playoff series.
Yeah, length.
Yeah. Were you at all surprised by the Anthony Davis stat line and performance coming out of that game?
When he does this, it's not a surprise, right? It's kind of like you said, the 1-in-3 rule, right? If I'm a Lakers fan, man, I'm pointing at this game like, why can't we get this all the time? Or at least, right, maybe not 27 and 15, but geez, give me 24 and 10, you fucking 7 foot. He's 7 foot, super athletic.
Yeah.
Can handle the rock. He was a point guard in high school and then shot up fucking 10 feet. Why can't we get this more? Why can't it be 3-1?
Yeah.
It's got to be so frustrating to watch this happen and then be like, oh, fucking Anthony Davis is going to suck in the fourth quarter tomorrow night. Like, it's got to be so frustrating as a Lakers fan,
Yeah.
And as an NBA fan, because when he's at his best, he's so fun to watch because he can get you anywhere. He can get you offensively. He can get you anywhere. He can back you down. He can dunk in your face. He has a good mid-range game, and he's not a terrible three-point shooter.
Yeah.
And if he's active and engaged on the boards and on defense, like he's the guy that the Lakers trade the farm to go get. He's the guy that any franchise trades the farm to go get. He's that good when he's right. But yeah, you now the 1-in-3 rule is so perfect to describe him, and it's gotta be so frustrating for Lakers fans. And that makes it even crazier to say, like, I'm not surprised by this because we see so much bad from him. But this is who he can be.
Yeah.
This is who he was at Kentucky before he even made it to the pros.
This is who he was almost every night in New Orleans that final year with Boogie Cousins when they had the two of them out there at the same time, and it was big man to big man offense.
Yeah, running pick and rolls with 2 7-footers.
Yeah, I mean, he has every skill set in the book.
Right.
He did not shoot a 3-pointer last night, or Tuesday night, excuse me, which was a little surprising, but it ultimately ended up not mattering because he was just punishing the Suns in the paint.
Yeah. Yeah, Nurkic had nothing for him.
Yeah. LeBron, of course, finished 31, 11, and 8. Not a big deal. Kind of what he does.
Right.
Yeah, you're 20, whatever, casual. Yeah. It is what
Father time.
Yeah, Father time. Who is that? You mentioned earlier.
First L here.
What's that?
Father Time might be taking his first L.
Yeah, man. We thought it was Tom Brady.
We thought it was, but fuck, LeBron might be the guy.
Yeah, honest. So you mentioned earlier that Milwaukee kind of ran away from the Knicks there. Was that a surprising finish to you? They ended up winning by 24.
Yeah, because I feel like the Knicks match up somewhat well with the Bucks.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of like both teams rely on the same positions to be their best players and kind of have fillers at other spots, right? Their front court, they've got some guys that can make some plays. Obviously, we know the Dame Lillard trade, but a guy like Julius Randle, I kind of expect him to be able to match up decently with Giannis, and you just end up in a situation where the Bucks just have too much, I think, for the Knicks. I hate to say this because, like, being from New York, I kind of like feel for some of the Knicks fans that are in New York because they've been jaded for so long. I don't have like previous loyalties to a professional basketball team before moving to the DC area. So like I haven't been through it, but I know people that have been through it. I feel for them because it feels like the Knicks are kind of regressing back to the mean, or at least kind of taking a healthy step back from last year where they hosted a playoff series for the first time, and I can't remember how many years it was. They hosted in the Garden for the first round, and it's tough to watch, honestly.
Yeah.
And lucky for them, they ended up hosting 2 rounds because the Heat knocked off the Bucks last year. But they had a good season last year, but it feels like this year is almost not quite 180, but it's starkly different than it looked like last year. They're not the same defensively. The Bucks, what they have 149, I think they ended up with 146. Like, that's not the Knicks of last year. The Knicks of last year were very deliberate, very good on defense, and they took the air out of the ball on teams a lot of nights. I think they were like 5th slowest in terms of possessions per 48 or something last year because they were very deliberate on offense. They didn't care about late shot clocks. This is a very different Knicks team. They can't win games like this. They don't have the offensive firepower to win games like this. What do you think? Am I way off on this with the Knicks?
No, I don't think you are. I tend to lean more towards that last year was the anomaly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that they are I don't think they're a host 2 rounds of the playoff team. You mentioned their pace. They're currently 2nd in the league for slowest pace in terms of possessions per 100, right? Which is kind of what we've seen from teams coached by Tom Thibodeau, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't play young guys, and they play super slow, and they lock down on defense. This team doesn't have any stud defenders on it, right? Like Quentin Grimes is a good defender.
A lot of scheme.
Like Quentin Grimes is probably their best defender, I think, like on-ball defender maybe, because Mitchell Robinson is a paint protector, but he's not like he's not a matchup with your opposing center rim protector. He's a play center field and uses length and athleticism, right?
Got to help defense.
Exactly. So we know that Julius Randle is not a great defender. He's just a big body and extremely strong, right? So you're like, well, maybe he can body Giannis a little bit, cause him havoc there. But I tend to think that this is more. Now again, it's the in-season tournament. They made it to the second round or to the quarterfinals, right? So good for them. That is impressive. They're obviously a good team, but I don't think they're a host to playoff series type of team. Like I if they were to match up again with Cleveland in the playoff, I would once again pick Cleveland to beat them. They beat them last year, right? But I think that Cleveland learned a lot from that. They said the lights were too bright for them. I wouldn't expect them to be too bright once again.
Yeah, Cleveland's a year older too, and a little more seasoned, whereas the Knicks are a little older roster, right? And I look at this game, and you mentioned the pace thing. They can't win games like that. They have to be that team, that slow-paced team, keeping the game. If it gets over 110, the Knicks are probably out to dry, right? And they got into the 120s in this game, and they gave up 140s. So that's definitely a game that they don't win this way. Now, this is the way I think the Bucks are going to win all year. I don't think this defense is going to get better. And I know we've talked about this a couple of times this year about, well, if they can figure out how to work the rotation with Dame and how they can help and this and that. I just think this is who the Bucks are. And I don't think they hate that. I think that they went into this season with the Dame trade and moving Drew and understanding that they were losing an elite perimeter defender, that Giannis is going to go for 28 a night and Dame's going to go for 25 a night. And we're just going to get as much scoring as possible from everybody else. We're going to get up 200 shots a night, right? This feels like this is the Bucks that we're going to have all year.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun. And, they're playing the Pacers tonight, and I'm surprised that they were only at 111 at half. I'm surprised by that. But I think this is who the Bucks are. Do you see them ever fixing this in terms of defense? And I say fix, but like internally, they may not even think they need to fix anything. This might just be who they want to be.
I mean, they're 15-6.
Yeah, right.
Winning
a lot of games this way.
Yeah, I mean, the Adrian Griffin experiment seems to be working pretty well there in Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned it. I don't know if they care to fix their defense.
They might not.
Like, they could. the 76ers beat the Wizards last night, right? And Embiid went for 50, and I'll hit on that later because I have to eat some crow. But like, if they play Philly, fuck it, go for 50.
Right.
We'll score. We'll have Giannis go for 51. It's like, and
you have
that's
120. We'll score 121.
Yeah, that's almost what they did with the Knicks. Like Julius Randle had 41.
Right.
Now Giannis only had 35, but like the Knicks were less efficient than were the Bucks. So they're I would assume that they're just banking on being better offensively than teams are all season long, and it's working so far.
Yep. Feels like the 07 Patriots where it's like, we're just gonna fucking score as many points as we can on you. We'll figure out the rest.
Yeah, I mean, hey, when your best Brunson, Randall, you pick who's the best. When Julius Randle goes 14 of 19 from the field and your team shoots below 50% on the game, it's tough to win games that way. And that's what the Knicks did on Tuesday night.
Yeah, and you mentioned it, right? They don't have an elite defender either. Mitchell Robinson may be an elite shot alterer when he's able to kind of just roam the paint, but he ain't getting out and stopping the pick and roll. He's not out there defending perimeter bigs that can handle the rock and whatnot. So, but offensively, they don't have any. I don't know that they have anyone elite either. I don't know that I don't know that I would qualify Julius Randle as an elite offensive player. I think he's a good volume offensive player.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I qualify him as elite on the offensive side either.
Yeah. I mean, he's 22 and 10 on the season right now. I mean, he made 13 All-NBA 2 years ago.
Yeah.
He's a very, very good player.
Very, very good player.
Yeah, I agree that he's probably not elite.
Yeah.
They do. I think they have one elite defensive player, but he's Quentin Grimes, and he only played 18 minutes the other night against Milwaukee because he's just not an offensive threat.
Yeah.
18 minutes, you take one shot. It's like, let's get DiVincenzo in here. He can do a little bit of both at a higher level than can Quentin Grimes.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. It's unfair of me to say that about Grimes. He doesn't get in the rotation that much either. On any given night, especially not on a night where they're giving up 140 to the
Bucks. I mean, he starts for them, but he doesn't close. He doesn't start the third quarter. Like he's not a key player that they're leading on this year.
Yep.
All right, so I mentioned previously that I had some crow to eat, and I've been known to do this from time to time on the show. I am the bearer of bad news. This evening, I am bringing the bad news upon myself. I am staring at a bet slip that I have for the Philadelphia 76ers to go under 48.5 wins. Now, the Philadelphia 76ers are currently 13-7, so we're 20 games in. Anything is possible, right? I could win this bet. I could not win this bet. I do also have a bet slip for the Memphis Grizzlies to go under 46.5. And I don't think that Desmond Bane is going to score 46 points a night, and they're not going to play Detroit every night. So unlike last night, they're not going to win every single game.
Yeah.
But the Philadelphia 76ers are sitting at 13-7. They're 2 games back from the 1 seed in the East, and they look as freaking as explosive as ever. Joel Embiid won his MVP last year. I think in large part to playing with James Harden. Now, Embiid has been one of the best 5 players in the world for a number of years now, right?
Yep.
But James Harden did a lot for that offense. Their offense is better without James Harden. Their team is better without James Harden. Tyrese Maxey came out of the gates absolutely on fire this year. And Nick Nurse has them boys on pace to host playoff games, to host first-round matchups, potentially second-round matchups once again in Philadelphia. And I think I'm going to lose this bet. I think that Philadelphia is going to go over 48.5, and I'm going to be very upset about it because that's my hard-earned money put on the line. But I will always call myself out if I'm wrong about something, and I will always call NBA teams out.
Save me a little corner of that crow.
Yeah.
I was
with you.
I was with you on the under. Tyrese Maxey is better than maybe even Philly expected him to be. He is fucking phenomenal. Addition by subtraction feels like a real thing with them, and they feel comfortable in their skin. I don't know if there was some internal tension last year also, even before we got to the offseason that James expected to get the extension that he was allegedly promised, right? Whether or not he was actually promised. He claims he was promised it. There may have been some tension in that locker room because there were times, especially in the playoffs, like they didn't look comfortable. The MVP of last season would disappear for long stretches of games. He's not doing that as frequently this year. There have been a couple of games where you look and you're like, God, he got one shot in the fourth. Things like that. But they've been a lot more, it feels like a lot more comfortable in their skin. They're on pace, I think, for 51 wins right now or something like that.
Yeah.
I have a feeling we're losing that one, but I have a feeling we're losing that one. They look good, and the bottom of the East looks even worse than maybe we all thought they would, and the middle of the East is looking worse than we gave them credit for at the beginning of the season. Yeah. There's a lot of wins out there, man. There's a lot of wins out there for a really good Philly team. That number doesn't feel very safe.
No, they have. So when Joel Embiid is leading the league in scoring right now, number one. Tyrese Maxey is currently 12th in the league in scoring right now. I mean, that's as potent.
Who had Tyrese Maxey in the top 15 in scoring before the season? Show me someone who had that bet slip.
Yeah,
and I'll shake their hand several times.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so just a quick numbers check for them. Maxey is going for 27, 4, and 7. And Embiid is going for 33, 11, and 7 on 51% shooting from the field.
60 points from your top two dogs.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not even taking into account, freaking Batum shooting, Covington shooting, and then the boy that they tried to trade for, a bag of cookies, old Tobias Harris, right? They and then Paul Reed, who may have gotten hit, or excuse me, not Paul Reed, Kelly Oubre, who may have gotten hit by a car. Nobody really knows for sure what happened there.
Story.
But yeah, I just figured I would come on here and let the people know that I'm willing to eat the crow on this Philadelphia roster. I think I leaned too heavily into the off-season drama.
I did too.
And didn't account for the fact that a mediocre NBA coach left the building and they brought in an elite tactician in Nick Nurse.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, I thought the rotation thing would be a little trying for them, but I think Nick Nurse is doing a better job in Philly than he did in Toronto. They're leaning on their dogs, which NBA teams do, but he's not running a real shallow rotation like he did in Toronto a lot of times. So it feels like they've got a nice kind of cohesive plan there. I think the one thing we didn't account for in the offseason either is that it literally was just James and Daryl Morey going back and forth. Yeah. We didn't hear from Embiid. We didn't hear from Maxey or any of the other guys on the Toby and, the other leaders on that team. I think it's clear, at least through 20 games, that I think they were just kind of minding their business, taking care of their house, and probably just being glad that they were free of maybe a drama king in James Harden, potentially. I can't speak for them directly, but 13-7 tells me they were taking care of business in the offseason while everybody else was worried about James Harden.
Yeah, I mean, Embiid probably feels like he'd been slighted in the past for the MVP, and he may be coming for 2 in a row.
Maybe.
I mean, there's a guy in the Western Conference who plays the same position who is, far and away the best player in the world.
Averaging a triple-double right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you saw this going around on social media recently, but Ty Halliburton had a triple-double. It was like 30, 10, and 10 or whatever with 0 turnovers.
Yeah,
and it was like, oh man, this has only been done 6 times previously in NBA history. You swipe to the next screen and it's a list of all of them, and Jokic had done it twice.
Jokic.
Yeah, it's like twice in the last 3 weeks. It's like, oh, well. Shout out to Halliburton, probably going to make first team All NBA, but god damn, Jokic.
Jokic is too goddamn good, man.
There's nobody ever. There has never been anyone in the NBA like him.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. He's the perfect blend of every offensive playmaker that you could think of while still having the size of
a 7-footer.
Yeah.
A 7-footer that plays below the rim and facilitates the entire offense.
Yeah. And
shoots crazy percentages. man, he damn near shoots 50% from three half the time, and he shoots really well from the free throw line.
Mm-hmm.
Such an efficient player.
Yeah. I'd like to talk about another efficient player in a game that I watched last night. That would be none other than my boy, your boy, our boy, Paolo Banchero.
Oh yeah.
Paolo Banchero in a loss, albeit it was close down the stretch. They lost to the Cleveland Cavaliers 121 to 111.
Who are hot as fish grease.
Yes, absolutely. Excuse me. Donovan Mitchell went for 35, had a great game. But Paolo set a career high last night. Paolo had 42 in a loss.
Yeah.
He went 16 for 26 in 38 minutes. He was 9 for 12 from the free throw line. Paolo Banchero is on a trajectory similar to that of like a Jason Tatum.
Mm-hmm.
He is rocket shipping to the moon in the NBA. The freaking Magic are third in the East right now. They're at a game and a half out of first place behind Boston. I believe they have one fewer game. Yeah, they played one fewer game than has Boston. But we talk about it all the time, and we talked about it especially during the preview show of how Orlando has all this young, super, super young talent with a lot of upside. And we were kind of figuring maybe they take some games early in the year to figure out the rotation, what they're going to do with all the backcourt depth that they have. Ryan brought up Jalen Suggs in the pod last week. We talked about the progression that he's made. I don't believe he played in that game last night. No, he did. He only played 9 minutes. So
not much run last night.
Yeah. So, but this is about Paolo being just an extremely efficient scorer and learning the game at a level that he did not necessarily play at Duke, right? When he was at Duke, he played with Roach, who did the majority of the ball handling, right? So Roach is the point guard. But if you watch these games where Orlando is playing, a lot of the time when Paolo is on the court, he is bringing the ball up the court, crossing the timeline, and initiating the offense, and they're running things through him. And Franz being the number two is a wonderful number two, right?
Mm-hmm.
Franz is also a stud on this team. But Paolo is taking steps in the NBA to become a true blue number one ball handler that can initiate an offense. He can handle in the pick and roll. He can also be the screener in a pick and roll. And that is the most valuable thing that a man can do in the NBA in terms of I'm forgetting words here and trying to talk through it as I'm thinking. From an efficiency standpoint, if you can play both sides of the pick and roll, you can handle and you can set screens. I mean, that's the number one value in an NBA player today. It's for someone at that size.
Absolutely.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. The Cavs are on fire right now.
Mm-hmm.
Tough start to the season. I think it was mostly injury related. Garland missed some time. I know Evan missed some time. And I think they're finally putting it all together, and it's showing. What are they in their last 10? They're like 7-3 or something. Yeah, 7-3 in their last 10. I think that's over the course of like their last 13. I think they're like 8-5 or 9-4 or something like that. So they are hot right now, and I think they're going to get to the point that we talked about them before the season being one of the maybe top three teams in the East. But Paolo is, man, if he could get his free throw percentage to 80. Which is where I think he should be with his athleticism and his ability on the court. Get your free throw percentage to 80%. Your scoring rate goes up to 22, 23 a game because he's averaging about 20 right now. And keep your three-point percentage around 40. Man, that's a guy we're talking about in a couple of years potentially being a 27, 28 point a game scorer and maybe in the MVP conversation, right? That's the potential that Paolo has. Continue to work the three-point shooting. I think he's a much better shooter this year than he was last year. But numbers can fluctuate, right? He's a career, I think, he shoot 20, 23 or 20, 29% last year from three. If you're up near 40, 35 to 40%, I think that's where he wants to be in terms of his three-point ability. The sky's the limit in terms of potential because he's so athletic. He's long. He's a willing defender. I don't know that he's technically the most gifted defender, but effort often is the way to win on the defensive end. When you're that athletic and that long and that, he's got a pretty decent frame on him as well. Just being willing to stick your nose in there defensively. But the pick and roll, continue to develop that. God, he's going to be fucking lethal. And if you get him and Franz running that on kind of a regular basis, think back to another Orlando Magic combination, Jameer Nelson and Hito Turkoglu.
Yep.
And you mix Dwight Howard in that too. Like, this is a franchise that has a history of basically the entire offense being pick and roll with a couple of shooters around them. And they won a ton of fucking games that way. If that could, if they could replicate that with Franz and Paolo, and then you mix a couple other guys in. Anthony Black had a good night last night as well.
Yep.
In a losing effort, but we talked about it. Cleveland's they're playing really good basketball right now.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Paolo, you mentioned it, the Jason Tatum trajectory potentially. I think I think you have to put him right kind of in that area of that. That looks like the ceiling for him. And if that's your ceiling, you're doing pretty damn good. Orlando did pretty damn good drafting him.
Yeah, 1,000%. Sorry, I'm just looking at so I was really, really locked into two games last night, right? The Cleveland, Orlando being one, and the other being Oklahoma City and Houston. There's a guy that plays for Houston that people like to joke is Jokic light. and he's listed at 6'11". His name is Alperen Sengun. For those who don't know, he's one of the most electric young players in the NBA. And you'd probably have a hard time spotting him if you walked out in public. You might get him because he's tall. He's not 6'11". I've watched a lot of Rockets basketball. He's not 6'11".
6'9".
Yeah, I mean 6'10" on a good day, right?
Right.
But some of the Jokic
back's loose.
Yeah, right. If he hangs upside down for a while that morning, he's 6'9".
Yeah.
Similar to Jokic, though, if you put a phone booth or a phone book on the ground, he's not jumping over it. Regardless, he's averaging 21, 9, and 6.
Yep.
And for my money, he's the best prospect that plays in the city of Houston.
I agree.
Yeah?
I agree.
I know that Jalen Green is the big draw. He's the big name. They drafted him out of the G League. He's supposed to be the future of the franchise. They handed the keys to the Ferrari once James Harden was gone to Jalen Green. And Jalen Green is very good. Don't get me wrong. I like Jalen Green. I'm a fan. His efficiency has gone up. But Alperen Sengun at 21 years old has come into the NBA and kind of adopted the same play style that Jokic has, man. He makes these passes because he is tall enough to see over most defenders. He makes these passes that he can thread the needle. He'll get it in the high post, so fake it to the top of the key, and then he whips like a sidearm pass to the corner to a guy who just cut baseline and is wide open. And it's like, man, I don't know how many players in the NBA can see that. It's like LeBron, Jokic, and maybe Sengun. I mean, this guy might be one of the 5 best passers in the NBA, and he's 21 years old. It's insane.
Yeah. I think he's a big reason why they're 9-9 right now and sitting in the 10th spot. In a play-in spot. I like the young talent that they've got in Houston, but for my money, this is the guy you build around for the future. Yeah, can you pair him with Jalen Green, and that could maybe be your 1-2 for the future? And if Amen makes good on his potential, maybe you've got yourself a 3-headed monster. Fine, but I'm doing everything I can to continue the growth and nurture the growth of Big Al here, because watching some of the passes, it's a lot of those with the vision, but it's like, how did he see certain things too? When he's in traffic, I've seen him a number of times, like little hip drop passes that just kind of skirt between 2 defenders and maybe bounce just over the knee of one and hit his teammate in the chest, and he's there for a nice easy layup. It's shit like that you see from Jokic, you see from Sabonis. Sabonis, another guy who's a really good big man passer, and his dad, right, who was also a really good big man passer. It's those guys that Al reminds you of. And if you're in that company, Houston's got something on their hands. And I know they love Jalen Green, and I know that they view Jalen Green as probably the face of their franchise going forward. But I'll say it again, man. For my money, Big Al's the face of that franchise in the next 3 to 5 years, honestly.
Yeah, 1,000%, man. And another guy on that roster that I really like, Tari Eason. He played 22 minutes last night, and that man is a ferocious defender. I think that if they were to put him and Dillon Brooks on the court together, I don't know how the other team scores, right? You throw Eason out there, you throw Jabari Smith Jr. out there, and you throw Dillon Brooks. It's like they're just hounding the heck out of the ball, and Jabari plays in the back end. There's so much length, so much tenacity on the defensive side. you pair that with the defensive intensity that Ime Udoka brings over when we saw the turnaround in Boston 2 years ago when he was the coach there. I mean, I like this Houston roster. They just beat Oklahoma City, who I think we all really like. You know, they're 13-7, and we just heaped praise on Philadelphia for being 13-7. Well, Oklahoma City's 13-7 in the West, right? Yeah. And they lost to a Houston team. I mean, to borrow a phrase,
Chet too, who's right now sitting in the catbird seat with regards to Rookie of the Year. So
100%
humbled him a little bit.
Yeah, well, Chet, I think the sky's the limit for Chet. There's
oh my god,
there's a lot of people who really
looks good, man.
Yeah,
he looks good.
He could do so many things on the basketball court that should not be able to be done at that size with that frame.
If he and Vic make good on the potential that they have, that's going to be a fun neighborhood. Because I mean, obviously Oklahoma and Texas, they have the border war there, but man, they're in the Western Conference. They're in the same division. They're going to play each other a lot. That's going to be a fun head-to-head matchup to watch if both of them continue to make good on what we kind of expected from them. You mentioned Ime Udoka. I want to get your thoughts on him flat out telling LeBron, stop being a bitch. And he said it several times. Never back down. LeBron kept kind of coming back at him and like, man, just don't throw that word around. Well, you're being a bitch. Stop being a bitch.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Ime as the coach on the sideline getting after the old man?
So my favorite part about that whole interaction is that he never said LeBron's name. That's my favorite part about it. He just referred to him as the player.
Yeah. Tell the player to stop being a bitch.
Yeah. But I love it, man. I've always said that I either want my coach to be so fiery that it's annoying, or I want them to be extremely stoic.
Yeah.
And Ime Udoka he finds the perfect times to be so fiery that it's annoying. And this was one of those times, right? Because clearly it annoyed LeBron.
Oh man, it got so far under his skin.
Yeah. How many times in LeBron's career can you point to that happening, that somebody gets under his skin? Not very many.
Not many. Draymond a little bit and Ime Udoka.
Yeah. I have to imagine that's a little bit of that was a Dillon Brooks thing.
Yeah.
Like, carry over from the playoffs last year when Dillon Brooks was calling him out.
Yeah.
But it's like, man, I personally loved it. I thought it was phenomenal. The theater of it was great. We have a final in Las Vegas, by the way. It was 128-119 Indiana. They take down Milwaukee.
All right.
So let's go tie.
Good for them.
Tie with 27, 15 assists, and 7 boards. That man is...
My fantasy team loves that.
I was going to say, as a fantasy owner of Ty Halliburton, I appreciate you, my friend.
Yes, sir.
You
have him in our other league, or is that a different league?
I have him in one of the leagues. I don't remember. If we're in 2, so
yeah, we are.
But to answer your question, I loved it. What Ime Udoka was doing. He's playing with a roster that is extremely young, and they're kind of running this year off of potential. Right, this is a building year for them. They brought in Fred VanVleet and Dillon Brooks to be the veterans in the room, and he as the coach, Ime Udoka, is setting the tone for everyone in that organization. They're saying we've been a losing organization for multiple years. Paul Silas, I believe, was the coach before him, and he kind of took a lot of the blame for them being so bad. I don't really think it was his fault. They just had no
roster.
Yeah, they just had no talent on the roster. But they've drafted well. Jabari Smith is playing very well. We talked about him exploding in the summer league, right? And that he hasn't exploded in the NBA, but he's taking steps to become a very efficient. He had a career high in rebounds last night. I believe he had 18. But I like what Ime Udoka is doing there in Houston, and he's setting the tone. He is taking it upon himself to let other teams in the league know that Houston is coming and they're not backing down from anybody. They'll play anybody anywhere. Yeah, and I love it.
Sure. Yeah, you just reminded me of my favorite all-time coach who got no credit for coaching as bad a teams as he coached, Brett Brown, who probably not a lot of people knew before he took over as Phillies coach, but 4 years, I believe, he suffered through the process before they finally were like, well, we're going to make a change, even though we know we haven't really given you the tools to succeed. Shout out to Brent Brown, because that was a fucking miserable situation that he made the best of. Just a fucking trooper, man.
Yeah, to talk about taking a guy's career winning percentage.
Oh, God.
He'll
never recover. Mm-hmm. Even if he gets a good head coaching job, he'll never recover.
Yeah. There was another game on last night between Denver and LA, and LA somehow squeaked this win out.
Man.
the most important thing for me from this, I don't care about who wins and loses, right? It's so early in the season that maybe saying I don't care is the wrong way to approach it. Jamal Murray's back. He's just getting back from injury, right?
He's still on restriction, though.
Yeah, exactly. The biggest takeaway for me is a season-long story that's been going on with LA, and that's that Kawhi and Paul George have played every game this year.
Yeah.
Now, I'm curious, and I want to get your opinion on this. So going into the year, that we know that there were new rules implemented by the NBA league office saying that you had to play, I believe it's 65 games to be eligible for end of season awards, right? So all NBA teams, MVP, DPOY, Sixth Man of the Year, things of that nature, right?
Yep.
Do you think there's any credence to the fact that those new rules were implemented to now that we're seeing probably the two most rested players in the NBA, Paul George and Kawhi, having played every single game this year?
I do. I think it has a lot to do with it. I think the fact that all NBA is tied to their pocketbook as well, I think is going to make these players say like, okay, well, I've got to, and they may find some time like in the middle of the season to load manage, but they're going to, when they're rested early in the season, they're going to play as much as they can. And then at the end of the season, when the games start to matter more, I think we're going to see this as well. I wouldn't be surprised if like the doldrums of January to like early March in the NBA, when we're just kind of in that mid-season All-Star game, is kind of, an event, but it's not necessarily a benchmark of the NBA season. So like that kind of stretch, we might start to see Kawhi and Paul George kind of take every other night off, maybe something like that. And I got a tweaked toe, or I got, I'm illness, some of those kind of non-injury things that they can use to designate. I do think you're absolutely spot on that change from the NBA, which needed to happen, in my opinion. That change, in addition to the fact that under the CBA, they negotiated that all NBA teams can get you a bigger contract, right? As you go to negotiate new contracts. I do think that has a lot to do with the fact that we've seen guys, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are probably the biggest example, because they're the two that we've seen load managed pretty heavily over the last few years, especially Kawhi. But I do think that has a lot to do with it for sure. Shout out to my burnt slip last night. I had the Nugs money line, man. They were like +1 or whatever. It was negligible juice for the money line. They get out to like a fucking 21-point lead in the first half, and it's like they went to bed at halftime. I had the game on for a moment, and then I was watching it on CBS Sports as I was messing around playing some video games with my brother last night. I pull up fucking CBS Sports app, and they're losing by like 6. I'm like, what happened? Yep, yeah, fucking burn that ticket.
Yeah, I watched the first quarter, and I was like, oh, the Nuggets got this in the bag. Murray's going to play 25 minutes or whatever.
Yeah. And he got almost 30.
Yeah. And then it all just kind of went to shit for them in the second half, which is unfortunate. But
yeah, LeBron will be that, right? January, February, early March-ish, when the games are those kind of mid-season games. I think we're going to see LeBron miss time, or things, sore lower back, whatever, right? Things that they can play off is always just tight, or under the weather, whatever it is. I think LeBron, I think AD is another one we'll see from the Lakers, both those guys.
Yeah.
You'll see it more probably from all of the stars, with some exceptions, because some of them are younger and whatever than others. But I think around that time, January until probably March-ish,
Yeah.
You'll see more of that, because then they can get them 8 or 10 games in the middle of the season over the course of that 2 months and still fit that 65 games in.
Yep, for sure. I'm glad you brought up the Lakers too.
Yeah.
One of the funnier aspects of this NBA in-season tournament is, along with the courts being changed, a lot of teams are wearing their city edition uniforms. Well, the NBA league office came out and said that the Lakers can no longer wear their black city edition uniforms because it causes visual contrast. Now, that's extremely ironic to me, because they're running out teal fucking courts.
Horrible courts that are hard on the eyes.
Yeah, you were talking about visual freaking visual contrast.
Way
Come
to
on,
fucking
NBA.
miss the bus, NBA. Jesus.
I like the black Laker jerseys.
I like them too. That's such a stupid whatever.
A ridiculous freaking statement by the NBA.
Yeah.
All right, I want to hit on one more game from last night's slate, and then we'll get into our NBA or our NFL pick. And then I know that we hadn't talked about this previously, but I'd like to get picks for the in-season tournament from you.
Yeah.
And I'll give mine as well. Real quickly on the game last night, Dallas played a game last night, and they beat the Utah Jazz.
Dallas did.
Yep.
But their opponent did not.
Did not. They beat Utah by 50. And Will Hardy, after the game, said that was a masterpiece in dog shit.
Yep.
Which I believe was put perfectly.
It was.
I mean, I don't know how much better you could say it than that.
You can't. I want to shake that man's hand, because that is maybe the most like prime example of like wordsmithing that you could probably put in front of anybody. Like, do you want to insult something in such a precise manner that everybody gets it and everybody hurts because of it?
Yeah.
Call it a masterpiece of dog shit.
Yeah, I might steal that one.
I think I'm going to as well.
might use that at work. Who knows? That being said,
if I find that in the comments on a Word doc, I will fucking lose it.
Like, we know who was here. Digital signature be damned. So as is often brought up on the show, I'm a huge college basketball fan, right? So there have been 2 times in my life where I've called my dad after watching a game to talk to him directly because something was so utterly shocking to me, right? The first time I watched Zion Williamson play a basketball game at Duke, I called my dad and I said, "Dad, this guy's different. I've never seen anything like this in college basketball. I'm going to watch every single minute of his career that I can." And he understood. My dad, as well, is a big college basketball fan, so he agreed with me. There was another time that I called my dad after watching a game. It was not last night. It is related to last night, though, because it was the first time I watched Luka Doncic play an NBA game. I called my dad and said, "Dad, over the course of the next 10 years, you and I are going to have many conversations, because there will be a lot of graphics put up on ESPN that say youngest player since LeBron."
Yep.
Or only LeBron James and Luka Doncic have done X, Y, and Z. And he's living up to the hype. I feel justified for over that phone call. Luka Doncic had a 29-point triple-double in the first half of the game last night. First half. That's 24 minutes of basketball.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Didn't he had like what, 22, 8, and 6, I think, in the first quarter?
Yeah.
Or 18, 8, and 6, whatever it was. It was
somewhere around there.
Unbelievable. And then he finished off the triple-double in the first half. Yeah. God, he is special. He's special. And you nailed that. You said it, and it's been true. Things he does, youngest player ever, youngest player since LeBron, first to do it since LeBron, those sorts of things. That has been the case with Luka Doncic, and fuck, is he fun to watch, man. He like, you never realize quite how basketball fast he is, because he looks like he's plodding, but he eats up space on you. And you watch defenders, and he'll like go by them, and sometimes I see them like look at him as they turn to try to play catch up, and in their head I feel like it's like, where'd this motherfucker just go?
Yeah. If he gets you on his hip, you're out of the play.
You're toast. You're toast.
Because you cannot move. He's quick enough to stay in front of you, and he's strong enough to where you cannot move him to get back into position.
Yep.
If he gets a step, you are essentially a nullified defender on the court, and he's going 5-on-4 because everybody is in play when he has the ball.
Yep.
Yeah, he shoots a lot, but we talked about Şengün's ability to pass the ball. Luka is as good as anybody at passing the basketball.
Oh yeah,
he sees things just as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
if he doesn't get by you and doesn't get you on his hip, he's just going to take that step back and shoot the fucking rainbow three.
Yep.
And I don't know if anybody shoots it in the rafters as well as he does.
Well, he learned it from Dirk.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. I had a conversation today, I believe it was, actually, with a mutual friend of ours from the office who's a native Texan. And we were talking about Luka, and I was telling him how he had the triple-double and all this stuff. And I was like, man, you probably love that. And he's like, well, I don't really like Luka as much as most people from Texas probably do. I root for the Mavericks, all this stuff, whatever. He goes, I really enjoy when a player looks like they're trying hard. And Luka doesn't do that.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't.
That's a good point.
It is a good point.
That's a great
point. He most certainly does not have to.
Yeah. And then I introduced him to a player who he might like to have on his team, whose name is Duop Reith. He's a player who, I'm going to be completely honest with you, I had never heard of before last night.
You only hear about these kinds of guys in 50-point games.
Yeah. I mean, the guy last night, this 27-year-old rookie who apparently played at LSU, Duop Reith, came in and had a career game last night for the for the Portland Trailblazers, even though they lost to Milwaukee. But this player really, really enjoys backup centers. And I figured that Duop Reith at 6'9", 245 might be one that he can add to his roster.
Yeah, for sure. Great name, too. All name, too.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's why I figured he would like him so much. Yeah. Duop Reith?
All name team.
Come on. Okay. So as is tradition here on Thursday nights during the NFL season, we do enjoy giving out picks. Gary does an NFL show where they do a lot of picks. Gary and I do a college football show where we give out a lot of picks. I believe we've been pretty profitable this year on our college football show.
We have.
It slowed. At least I slowed down.
Double digits over 500. So we beat Vegas. We beat them up pretty good.
I know that I slowed down as the year went on, but I believe you stayed pretty steady all throughout the season. So credit to you for that.
We did well.
I continued to pick my Tulane boys. Did not work out well for me. Shout out Willie Fritz, though, getting the Houston job.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah, good for him. Okay, so tonight in the NFL, we have the daunting New England Patriots going up against the equally daunting Pittsburgh Steelers in Acrisure Stadium, or Heinz Field, as we prefer to call it around here.
Yeah.
Gary, did you know that the total is 30.5, which is the lowest closing total? Well, I read since 2005. Maybe it's history. I don't know.
Is it since 2005? Okay, maybe it's since then. I know it's been a long time. I know. Yeah. I saw the stat the other day, and I was like, "Oh, that's so ugly," but it makes so much sense because it might be a masterpiece of dog shit tonight.
I mean, freaking 22 years is basically forever. Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
All right, so we have the total 30.5. New England is a 5-point dog on the road as currently constituted. Do you have a lean, Gary? What are you thinking for this evening? Give me a pick. Give me a winner. Give me a total. I
can tell you who a loser is, and that's America. I'm going to lean to this being a field goal game. I'm going to lean to the Patriots defense is better than their record says. They've gotten a little healthier on the defensive side of the ball. They just held Justin Herbert to 6 points, and we're getting Mitch Trubisky tonight for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know that the Patriots are going to be able to really score points, but give me like 11-9 game or something weird like that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take the points with the Patriots because I think it's just going to be an ugly, sloppy, tight football game settled by less than less than 5 points. I think it's going to be a field goal game. So I'm going to take the points. I wouldn't bet the mortgage on either side of this because these teams are not good offensively. If I were to lean heavily on anything, I'm leaning on the under because both of these defenses are good in ways that the other offenses are bad.
Yep.
The Steelers are going to get after the passer, and the Patriots pass offense is fucking terrible, and they can't pass block. And they can't really run the ball. And Ramondre Stevenson has not been able to do the things that we've seen him do in the past. The Steelers started to get the running game going before they played the Chargers, and then they fell. Before they played last week. I forget their opponent, but the Patriots played the Chargers and held them to 6. I don't think the Steelers are going to score a lot more than the Chargers did, but the Steelers had the running game going, fell flat on their face last week against the Cardinals. The Cardinals shut them down in the run game. Maybe they get a touchdown. Maybe they go for 2, and then it's like 4 field goals. So give you 11-9 Steelers. I'm leaning heavy on the under just because these offenses are fucking anemic.
Yes.
Anemic offenses.
Yeah, I mean, I believe I just looked and it already slipped out of my head. I believe that Ezekiel Elliott has the best odds to score a touchdown. He's like plus 200. Yeah. Zeke has scored 2 touchdowns on the season.
The whole year.
Yeah, so it's crazy that he even has odds to score a touchdown tonight. I mean, if you can find a no touchdown prop for this game, that might be the best play.
That might be the line because you'll get some juice. You get some juice in an NFL game. You'll get some juice for no touchdown.
That being said, I'm gonna follow you and take the Pats. I don't expect them to win, but I would probably take the points with them and the under as well. I don't know how these teams score 2 touchdowns apiece.
No,
it's going to be miserable. It's going to be awful, and
the weather's not great in the Northeast either now.
But boy, am I gonna have fun watching it.
Oh yeah, it's a football game. We're still going to be tuned in.
Yes. However,
might need a couple of sodas.
Yeah, right. On the other side of the coin for this evening, we have another basketball game.
Yes, we do.
And we're going to give out a pick for this one.
Yes, we are.
We have the Pelicans going up against Anthony Davis and LeBron James. Anthony Davis playing against his former team, of course, the New Orleans Pelicans. And we have what I would assume are 2 very excited New Orleans Pelicans to get this victory. Because as they said, or did not say in their press conference, Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson are ready to freaking party in Vegas. They were asked how they would celebrate if they won, and they just kind of looked at each other and smiled and giggled. And if you know anything about Zion Williamson, I think you know what that means.
Yeah.
So Gary,
he's gonna hit In-N-Out, and then they're gonna go to the strip club.
Yeah, he might have In-N-Out delivered to the strip club, son. Like he's going right from the stadium. Yeah. He said, "Y'all pick it up on the way. I'll meet you there."
Yeah.
I got a baby mama working tonight.
Uh-huh.
So
watch out for those Instagram posts.
Oh God. That being said, let's get to the lines here. So Pels, technically the away team, it doesn't matter. They're playing in Vegas, the T-Mobile Arena. We have the Lakers favored by 1.5. I'm not going to ask you to pick a line. Basketball lines, kind of take them or leave them, in my opinion. You can give me a line if you want, but Gary, who's going to win this game?
Yeah, I mean, it's negligible at 1.5. If I were going to pick the Lakers, I probably would lay the 1.5. If I were going to pick the Pelicans, I would just do money line. That's just kind of my system when games are this close on the the spread. That being said, I am going to go Pelicans in this game to win for the reasons we talked about a moment ago with Anthony Davis. I don't think he's going to have the same night he had the other night, and the Lakers need him to have that kind of night tonight. I think that the Pelicans give the Lakers a lot of fits with their athleticism. That for me, I just think it's the matchup. If LeBron has another 30, 10, and 10 night, then he may be able to kind of stem some of the issues that I think they're going to have with Anthony Davis in terms of not replicating what he did Tuesday night. If he replicates what he did Tuesday night, I'm going to be wrong on this because he's that important to this Lakers team. If he has a good night, they will win, but I am betting that he won't. So I'm going to take the Pelicans, and if you want a line, I'll take it money line.
Yeah. I agree, which ultimately means that we're going to be wrong.
Yep,
because
Lakers by 40.
Yeah, we're on the same side in both these games tonight.
Yeah.
But for similar reasons to what you said, right? I will include we mentioned previously about how the Suns don't have the 7-footer to defend Anthony Davis. Well, Jonas Valanciunas plays for New Orleans, and he is a mean son of a gun on that defensive end.
Yes.
He doesn't back down from anybody. He thinks he's one of the best players in the league, and I respect the hell out of that.
Yeah.
Anyone that has a crucifix tattooed around their neck, I tend to stay away from that guy. But Jonas Valanciunas bodying up against Anthony Davis, 1-3 Anthony Davis. Give me the Pelicans. Like you said, they have a lot more athleticism, and with I don't know who's going to guard Zion. I would venture to say that Anthony Davis does, because you're not going to put Anthony Davis on BI. That would probably be LeBron's tasking. I just think they have too many guys between BI, who's been more of a playmaker this year, and Zion, who can out muscle and out athletic basically anybody on a court, right? I believe that the Pelicans will find ways to score in this game that LeBron is probably not going to be able to keep up with just by himself. I just don't see that happening. But I have been wrong before, and I will admit that if I'm wrong, I will say so once again.
Too. If this was at Staples, I may be swayed to go Lakers, but I also don't think it would be 1.5. It's probably closer to like 3.5 if it's played at Staples. But this neutral site, I think the Pels are too athletic. Anthony Davis blew his load in the quarterfinals. Give me the Pels.
Yep, I agree. Okay, that kind of brings us to the conclusion of the show this evening. I appreciate you jumping in. I know you had kind of a hectic schedule there for a minute, but I appreciate you being here to keep me in line. You know, who knows where I would have ended up with this podcast if I was all by myself. Me and your dad would have had a great time, though. I'll tell you that. We could have ended up literally. I could have gone on a 45-minute diatribe about how Bilal Coulibaly was the 8th best rookie, according to Basketball Insider, I believe. Had him as the 8th best performing rookie this year, while Chet was 1, and I believe they had Derek Lively at 2.
I think
or
so.
Maybe Vic was at 2. I don't know. Lively was in the top 3, and I love that. Yeah.
Listen, as a Wizards fan, I've not been a lifelong Wizards fan, but as a Wizards fan, I am very encouraged with what I've seen from Coulibaly.
Yeah.
His shooting is much better than I anticipated it being as a rookie.
Yeah.
And it gives me hope that he's going to continue to work on it. If he becomes a multi-level threat on the offensive end with his natural ability on the defensive end, he could become a budding star potentially for the Wizards.
Yeah, for sure.
By it, man.
For sure. My only hesitancy with Bilal Coulibaly is that I don't know that he's going to be elite at any one thing.
Right.
That's my only. Yep. He reminds me a lot of like a Jeremy Sohan that's a better shooter.
Yeah.
It's like, is that what you want out of your number 8 overall pick? I mean, you can't really be choosy in that position.
Yeah, I think as you get to the second half of the lottery, it gets dicey. We know how heavy the top of the lottery is in the NBA. So I mean, if you found a second option and a good defender at number 8, maybe you're happy with that.
Yeah,
I know you want to find that superstar, but if you found yourself a borderline star, maybe you're happy at number 8.
Yeah, and they're doing exactly what I need them to do right now.
Lose
and cash over tickets for everybody but me.
Yeah.
All right. Gary, do you have final thoughts for this evening? Give the people something to chew on.
Yeah, we've got the in-season tournament coming to its final stages, and I want to say once again that the NBA has won with the in-season tournament. I was a skeptic. I know we talked a bit about kind of things that we were concerned with at the beginning of the season. Would the players give a shit? Would they be able to sell TV dollars? I think it's been great. Just keep in mind, fans out there, the more success we have with the in-season tournament, the more likely it becomes a bigger thing. And I don't know if that's better, but I think the NBA is going to ride this thing until it starts running out of coins. So for those of you out there that don't like the in-season tournament, because I know there are some detractors, It's here to stay, and it's probably going to become even more prominent, maybe even a bigger thing in the future. But for those that like it, we might get a lot more in terms of the way this thing is run. I'd love to see what you suggested last week or the week before, that maybe we could stretch this thing out and kind of do a pool play before January and maybe start doing elimination games after January. But for its first iteration, man, I think the NBA has knocked it out of the park.
Absolutely.
And you can't always say that about these major sports that try to change things.
100%. I totally agree. All right, folks. This is the end of the show for the evening. We will for sure be back next week. Same bet time, same bet channel. Please check us out Tuesday nights at 7, college football, Tuesday nights at 8, NFL. And, of course, get your NBA fix here Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern. For Backyard Sports and Backyard Buckets, we are out.